Welcome back to the channel, and welcome finally to my van conversion tour video. I have been living in this Ford Transit extended roof, extended length for a few months now. I decided to go with this specific van because I'm about 6'2.5", and with the insulation on top and the insulation underneath the floor, I can stand up perfectly fine, which feels quite luxurious compared to the car I used to live in before this. The other thing is, none of the vans would be big enough for me to be able to sleep widthwise, so having the extended length made it so that I could fit about a queen-size bed platform, which is perfect for more than one person. The other thing is, as compared to Mercedes, Ford vans can get serviced anywhere, and because I used to live in a Ford, I'm pretty familiar with Fords and the way they operate in their dealerships. So starting up front, one of the absolutely crucial things that I needed in a van was a separation between the front and the back. This door right here, I got some inspiration off of Instagram, people that had done similar barn door style access to the front. I thought it was a cool aesthetic touch with the the wood and white color combination that I was going for stylistically. And so this gives perfect access to the front cab and is able to insulate with about 1.5 inches of insulation on all three of these wall panels, so that the heat or the cold stays much better contained in the back. Since I have very few windows, really just one, in the whole van conversion, most of the heat transfer happens up front, and so having some kind of barrier was crucial, as well as being able to lock access from the front to the back, making it much more difficult to break in. This also gives me a great place to come in, hang my keys, and move on, because I've got a perfect place to be able to hang up things like the towels to dry, or raincoats, or keys. And I think it just is a nice aesthetic choice that goes with the rest of the van conversion. Moving on from the entrance is the beginning of the kitchen here. I've got an outlet back here, which is very useful for any kinds of kitchen appliances, or even just charging my phone, or other camera equipment type stuff. I have 3 outlets total in the van. Any more than that felt like overkill, and all of them have USB-C, USB, and 2 normal AC home adapters. Here I've got my propane cellar, which has the propane tank, which is fitted to be able to drain excess propane out through the bottom of the van, as well as water jugs, some cleaning supplies, dish soap, and paper towels. On top of that, I have just a random junk drawer kind of thing. I've got some coins. I've got some I've got a lighter, some chargers, some files, and things like aluminum foil and Ziploc bags. Moving on to the sink, I decided to go with the slightly larger sink because I have plenty of counter space here on this side, as well as more counter space on the back. And I know it's a very popular faucet, but I think it looks great. 3 things that I really wanted to have with my kitchen sink were a light up button right here that operates the pump, so that if I leave it on while I go to sleep or leave it on overnight, I can very clearly see it because this illuminates the whole front. And the reason you don't want to leave a pump like that on is because when you're driving, fluctuations will turn the pump on and off, and it's set to be able to turn off automatically at 45 psi, so random fluctuations while driving could screw that up. The other thing I really wanted to have was a filtered water spigot like this, which I can fill up water bottles from, or even when I make certain dishes that require a lot of water, I like to use it from there. It's filtered straight from underneath. Then the other thing I really wanted to have, but was a little bit more complicated, was setting up hot water. Generally speaking, you have 2 options for hot water. You can either go with propane or you can go with electric. The problem with electric is that they generally draw at least 1.5 kilowatts, which is a lot of power when we're talking about off-grid electrical systems. So I decided to use a 1.5 kilowatt water heater, but in association with a timer switch that allows me to set the amount of time. 10 minutes is usually fine to heat up the 3 gallons of hot water. And it works perfectly fine. It puts a drain on the power, but it doesn't drain any more electricity than I would need, and only running it for 10 minutes is perfectly fine. Moving on to the kitchen stove, I chose this one because I thought it went well with the the black sink and the black faucet, and I think the glass is similar to the outside of the window that I have on the outside of the van. And this is just a normal propane stove connected to the same propane system as my heating, which runs out of the propane locker. This stove is excellent so far. I really just got it for the aesthetics, but it's nice to have something that is able to self-light like that. And it's been problem-free ever since I've had it. Underneath the stove here, I've got my utensil drawer, typical things, typical kitchen knives and spoons and spatulas. Underneath that, I've got my pots and pans, the lids, and some sponges. And then I've just got an electronics drawer down here with my various electronic things. All of these drawers have latches to be able to close, which are perfectly strong enough to be easy to open, but don't open when I'm driving. And I've been down pretty much some of the bumpiest, curviest roads you can do, and I've had absolutely no problem so far. Overhead is food, plates, and cup storage. Although I'm not the most organized person in the world, I try my best to have normal meal type things in here, breakfast things in here, tall enough to put all kinds of cereal boxes and stuff. And I think now that I've lived in here long enough, I know kind of where I want to add secondary shelves. This stuff shakes around in here. However, I've had no problem with any of it falling out. Surprisingly enough, it does stay in here. And all of these are held down with these magnetic latches. And the soft close is perfect to accommodate that. Works perfectly fine. And it's been problem-free so far. I have had some times where the van really will shake and one of these things might pop open and close. But things generally don't fall out. On this side, overhead, I've got toiletries, contact lenses, things like that. One of the things I really wanted to have is a large fridge and another countertop surface on the other side. Because a lot of vans will have one, long or medium-sized counter on one side, and then the other side will be some kind of bench or seating area. And I know that wasn't going to work for me because I fill up counter space real quick. And even though this is quite a bit of counter space, I still managed to fill it up pretty quickly. I've got this little lock right here because those latches wouldn't be sufficient for drawers of this size. And then, of course, the giant fridge has way too much inertia. So one big right turn and all this stuff is going to open. So all you got to do is unscrew this. Inside here this is my biggest junk drawer, so I've got all kinds of cables, chargers, nothing too special. And underneath I have the giant freezer, which has two compartments, one for all of my fridge supplies and then one for everything that stays frozen. This fridge has worked perfectly for me so far. Even though this is by far the biggest fridge I've seen outfitted in a van this size, it's pretty much always full, and so I don't think I could really make do with anything much smaller. And so, and I think it's fine. It's great to be able to set dual temperature zones however I want. Close it, and then just lock that up like that. And it works perfectly well. It's very nice to have extra counter space on this side. Right over this counter is also where I have my switches. Some to control the lights here on dimmers for behind me or in front. And then, of course, what we're going to be getting to next, my elevating electronic bed system, which was a must-have for a van because most van conversions have some kind of bed that requires being made every time if you have to sleep lengthwise, especially if it's a combination couch and bed. But I knew that if I had a bed that I had to make every time, I just would always leave it made. And I'd probably never use the couch. This way I wake up and press the button and then go about my day. It's really, really cool. Moving on to here, this is my closet, at least where most of my clothing is. Under the benches, I do have plenty of additional storage, but I tend to fill these up pretty well with my socks and underwear up here. I've got my t-shirts and long sleeve shirts here, and down here I've got my pants, ski pants and some snow supplies, as well as plenty of hanging room for my huge -40 jacket, and probably 3 more jackets down here that would fit just fine. And then this little cubby, I can put whatever I want in here. All of these are held in with Velcro in the back that just snaps straight back to the to a little wooden piece back here. And it means that of all the things that have fallen, these have never even shifted whatsoever. They fit perfectly in here. I think they look nice. I just got these at Target, and I decided to build I wanted to find some kind of bin that I knew would be able to fit the clothes and fit the aesthetic, and then I built the closet around it to fit these exact sizes. And since they're so snug, they tend to go nowhere. And then it was very crucial to me to have some kind of hanging closet like this, because some of my big jackets and raincoats I don't want rolled up, especially if they're going to be wet. Underneath it, I've got space for some shoes and some carpet down there, which helps absorb any dripping water, and a good place to put my dirty shoes. Moving on to the back. This ginormous seating area, which could easily sit 7, maybe even 8 people because of the room in the back, is where I spend most of my time. I've got my keyboard here, which was an absolute must. I've got a nice swiveling table that can go wherever I want it to and hold plenty of weight, perfect for things like playing piano or using my laptop. Got plenty of pillows to keep it cozy, and I've got these insets on either side, which when I built it out, I had this planned out because I knew that when I'm sitting, I tend to sit like this or take up some of the space back here, which I think it's a very natural way to sit, because if you don't, your head will end up hitting against the walls. And so having some kind of inset, and it's insulated behind on either side, so there's plenty of insulation back here. I've had no problems with temperature whatsoever. And so this was a must-have, and I think the aesthetic choice is nice with the wood backing. All of these benches open up to reveal different storage down here. I've got a laundry basket and the heating system, as well as what is essentially my garage under here with fishing, skiing, all those kinds of supplies, and more clothing in the back here, tools, basically all kinds of random spare things. I can't stand up here. It's about 5'7" tall. However, generally speaking, the table's right here, so it's not like I'd be able to stand up anyways. And yeah, when you're seated here, you really forget that this faux roof here is really the underside of the bed, and it's a great place to hang out. And honestly, I'm very happy I designed it this way, because if I had to assemble the bed with the table every single time, I know that's not me. There's no way I'd be doing that every single day. I'm sure you guys notice my mountain cutouts here, the Cascade Range here with Mount Rainier in the middle, and the Teton Range in the back. And I just thought it would be a cool little nightlight to be able to have these LED light strips, which are just AC connected with a USB port right here, and I can control the color and the brightness from my phone. And so generally at night I'll just have the mood lighting as a little night light, and then once I'm ready to go to sleep, I just press the button on my phone and turn them off. I just think it's a cool little aesthetic choice again to kind of separate the van from what I've seen other people do and to personalize it. Also, this shelf here is a lot more useful than I even anticipated, because when the bed comes down, it clears this space. Anything that I put up here can be up here whether the bed's up or down. I don't have to move it. Unlike things that are on the table or on the benches, which might be in the way, like some of the pillows. It's not much of a problem, but it's nice to just put my laptop here, my phone. It's where I end up charging almost all my electronics, and it's nice to have a bedside table on either side. Another must-have for me, which if you've been following the channel for a while, you might know, I really like my internet and my connectivity, so I have a cell boosting antenna which is mounted on top and can be raised or lowered just by hopping on the back, which relays internet and cell service excellent from outside. Without it, this is just a big metal box, and I get no connection whatsoever in here. And this boosts it significantly better than it even would be in general. People kind of have their perspectives on how this works. It will not give you internet where you don't have it. However, just getting 9 feet up on top of a van is a significant cell service advantage. And just on top of it, I have T-Mobile hotspot internet. So whenever I have T-Mobile or roaming network coming out of the cell booster. I get great internet speeds inside here, and I'm able to host my own Wi-Fi network, which is a big plus, especially for using your computer on the road, having a hotspot to connect to, because the phone hotspots are limited and not nearly as good as this. So I would definitely recommend having Wi-Fi in your van if that's something that you care about. And both of these have power coming in through the AC system, so they're always powered. So generally speaking, funny enough, I can have really bad internet outside, walk in the van, and out of nowhere I have 5 bars of LTE and a working internet connection. So definitely a must-have for me, and something that I could not live without. I will go into all the technical specifics and of course demonstrate the bed and all that in a second. And then all the technical specifics and the way the water system works and all that I'll show you at the end. Here I wanted to show you what the ceiling looks like while the bed is up. So you can see all 8 of the dimmable puck lights here. I picked them because I like the way the little stainless steel covers looked, and I like the color temperature, as well as my ceiling fan here, which the same as everybody else's, the typical max air fan that's able to blow air in or out, close when it rains. I'm not going to be using that for quite a while because it's wintertime now, and you know me, I go places where the winter doesn't end until July. So it's great to have. It's extremely useful when I'm in hot places, like when I was converting the van. I pretty much had this running the entire time because this is one of the first things I set up. And it's an excellent system to have because without being able to exhaust hot air, if you're in a place that's above the temperature you want it to be inside, there's just no way. You're going to cook inside a van. Back here, these curtains serve as a light softener, some nice insulation between the front and the back, and of course, I just think they look awesome, and, you know, it might be a very van-lifey choice, but this was one of the last things I put in, but it was one of the first things that I had planned out. I've got these little ties on either side, so on a nice day, not today, I would leave this open and take in the sunshine. Of course, we should be getting some snow later, and winter is definitely among us here in the Cascade Mountains, but it's still an awesome thing to have. When I was building the van, I had all manner of tools at my disposal, so when I finally set off, I had to really think of what to bring because I've made countless repairs already, and I've added things like I hadn't installed the internet systems or anything like that yet, and so that's been something I've had to install on the road, which is not so easy given how few tools you can fit inside a van, but still worked out just fine. That's why inside here I've got another little garage, mostly fishing supplies. Here I've got extension cords, hoses, things to fill up my water tank, camping type supplies as well. Down here I've got a big DoorDash bag filled with tools, and then on this side another Husky toolbox here just filled with all kinds of, you know, electronic adapters, crimpers, things like that, things that I'm sure I'm gonna need today, tomorrow, every day pretty much. I end up making repairs pretty much 24/7. I guess that's the when you build out a more intricate system, that ends up being the reality of it, because on these roads that I like to take the van, a lot of things can go wrong, and do often go wrong. But this here from the back now, you can see the way this back pillow works here. It's wide enough to sit 2 people, and it kind of completes the look. This way I can have some space coming out to really fill the shape of the van, use up maximum amount of space and efficiency, as well as on the ceiling where the bed extends out farther than the actual mounting points on the track actuators. That way the bed can be a few inches longer. Because a lot of people talk about bed lengths and about how, for example, like, oh, you're 6 feet tall, so you need a 6-foot bed. Well, not necessarily. If you want to be comfortable, I tend to sleep with a pillow, like a normal person. So I have like another 3 or 4 inches of space that I want. So the bed is about 6'6", 6'7" long. So it's perfect for sleeping. Somebody my size, no problem. My feet never go hang over the edge or anything like that. And it's very comfortable. You can also see here how my I've got these little trusses here that are able to support the bed in event of some kind of failure with the with the load control. So the bed would be able to rest on here no problem, at least temporarily, just so it doesn't crash and break the entire system. The actual bed does stop, as I'll show you in a second, just above, a couple millimeters above all 4 of those, with limit switches that are built into this trim panel I have on either side. That way it covers up the antenna cable, the coaxial cable, and all of the wiring for the bed lift system. For those of you wondering, I started the van conversion about a week into June, and I finished about a week before September. So it took me, a little under 3 months, about 2.5 months to do the whole conversion. I essentially did the whole thing by myself. I had help from some, family or friends every now and then, but that was about the time frame that I had expected. And it's definitely doable in just a summer, as long as you are doing it every single day. And I usually didn't end up coming home till, long past midnight, 2, 3 in the morning. But since I was in Austin, Texas, in the middle of summer, those were about the best hours, because this was a brutal one, and it was over 100 just about every single day, which meant it was like 120 in the van. A little miserable, but absolutely worth it for what I was able to get out of it. So let me show you guys how the bed works now. The long-awaited bed. Like I wanted it to be, the bed lift system is as simple and as intuitive as possible. Of course, it does go down to this level here, so everything there needs to be not necessarily cleared, but at least moved a little bit around so that the bed can compress it down. And of course the table has to be lowered as well. This Lagoon table mount, same one everybody has in their vans, it is a game changer. You're able to just loosen it up down here with this little lever. And once it's loosened up, you just kind of rock it and let it drop. As long as it's below that level, then it's perfectly fine. If I want to use my laptop while I'm in bed, I just set it on one of those shelves. And then the only other step is, well, I know I'm going to want those pillows, so I'll make sure that the big white pillows come with me. Pop them on a counter. And then the bed's ready to come down. Then it's as simple as just pressing the down button, dimming those lights that I'm not going to need anymore. And then of course I wait. It doesn't make that much noise, much less noise than the professional systems. And it's pretty quick and it draws barely any power. So I do think it's the best way to build an elevating bed. Just like that, it's in place. I also have a light up button here with the up and down. That way I can see if I leave it on. Not that it necessarily matters. It will go to its limit. And then it'll be able to support the 500 pounds it's designed to support. But it's just nice to see, just like with the pump, what I leave on and what I turn off. And then just like that, I've got a bed that I can sleep in either direction, because as you know, I cannot sleep with my head lower than my feet. That is just miserable. So this way, it was a must-have too, and it's not that complicated. Have a bed that can be oriented in any direction. It's easy to hop onto. It's a nice and comfortable bed, and it's already made like this. All I have to do now is just take my pillows and then tuck in. I'm proud of the way that turned out, because it wasn't very complicated. It's a pretty straightforward system. They just all have to be wired in together. And with the limit switches, they'll go where they're supposed to anyways. But it's cool to see it in practice, and honestly, it works even better than I expected, because it's nice and quiet, and it just makes the van life experience that much more enjoyable, if it wasn't already. With the bed down like this, you can reveal the whole ceiling, which is these tongue and groove pine planks that are 12 feet long, the exact length that they need it to be. And although I have no light coming from above, that's kind of part of the idea. Still plenty of light comes from here and comes from here, and then even light will come through the little fan up here. However, the general idea is that if I want to be up and at 'em and awake, the bed's out of the way and I can be in more of a focus mode, instead of just laying here and being able to leave the bed down at all times. I know it would take quite a lazy person to leave a bed that you press a button to move it back up down all day, but don't underestimate me. Of course, when you're done using the bed, the exact opposite procedure. Just take the pillows, put them where I want to leave them, And since the middle has a little bit more room than the outside, I like to favor the middle with the blanket because I don't want things to get caught. It shouldn't be important. It would just pull everything through anyways. But then I just press the up button and I let the van do its thing. And just like that, it goes exactly where it needs to. And flip those lights back on. And since the table's already loosened, all I have to do is just pick it up, tighten it from below, just like that. I usually give it 4 big twists, and then I've got a whole workable bench area, which is just a perfect place to sit down, chill, work, do whatever you need. I'm sure many of you are interested in some of the building parameters and the materials that I used. So before I jump into all the technical stuff, I will run down what I used for some of the building essentials. For insulation, I have foam panels in the ceiling, foam underneath the floor, both about 1.5 inches, plenty of thickness. Everything's held in with spray foam, spray expanding foam. That's for the ceiling and the floor. The walls are insulated both inside the panels, T-panels, T-bars, things like that, and then just on the surface, like behind here and behind the insets, with stone wool. The way I built the floor here is that the first thing I did was just lay all that insulation down, those big insulation foam boards that were cut to the right size and shape. And then I have plywood on top of that. The plywood is bolted down. There's nothing glued. There's nothing in those little ridges. I don't think any of that's necessary. The plywood being bolted down through the bottom undercarriage of the van is what holds the insulation in place. And then all of the plywood and all of the things that are screwed into the floor are able to bolt no problem right into that plywood. And it's some thick plywood. And it works perfectly fine. There's no creaking or anything. And then this life-proof floor from Lowe's are, the vinyl wood, but it looks excellent and it works fine. It's perfectly waterproof, skid-proof, scratch-proof. It's exactly what you want in a van. All of the cabinetry, overhead and base cabinets are all custom made, just out of random pieces of Home Depot plywood, mostly birch for the better looking things like this, and like the walls, and of course all of these little panels, and the cladding that I added for aesthetic purposes. I definitely think that having some kind of cladding is nice, because it just, it adds a little bit of dimension, and since you're decorating a tiny home essentially, every little thing, as long as it's done cohesively, adds a lot to the overall flavor of the van conversion. Same goes for all of these, intricate, complicated cutouts, which are necessary for a van which has no flat surfaces, no straight surfaces, no level surfaces, nothing. Everything is curved, everything is custom, everything requires painstaking cut, recut, uncut, measure. You can't even measure this kind of stuff. You got to cut it out with cardboard first to make these very specific panels. But once it's all put together and caulked about 100 times, it looks excellent. This window is just a piece of cedar underneath here, some vinyl wrap on the inside, and then a little piece of birch plywood that was cut to the shape. It's my only window in the entire van. It is impossible to break in through there because it's too small to do anything. It opens with a little mosquito screen. That way I can vent out some of the fumes if I'm cooking something, create a cross breeze if I need it, and just have some light as part of the overall backsplash. That was definitely something that I had planned out in my original idea, and it ended up being a great thing, and I think it's a great aesthetic choice. I think it looks really good. And it locks. But if somebody were to try to break in through there, what are they going to do? There's no way they can reach anything. And of course, deadbolting the doors in the back, the doors on the side, and locking this from the front means that it is somewhat impenetrable. Of course, a motivated person could angle grind through one of those deadbolts or just straight up through the wall. But generally speaking, my philosophy is that if it's difficult enough to break in, they'll probably move on to the next van. So make your van harder to break into than the van next to you. For those of you that are interested in the technical parameters of the van builds, how the off-grid system works, and where all of that is housed, that is what we're moving on to now. The electrical system access is behind here. I don't need to move the piano, but it'll make it easier to see. All of these are Velcroed, so they can just be pulled down. And that's how you access the electronics port here, which on the inside is my elaborate mess of a power system. The battery is 300 amp hours and is able to support for a few days pretty much all of my systems. I have a resting wattage draw of about 30. With a few systems on, that'll go up to 50, and then when the fridge runs, it's usually around 75 or 80. That still manages to last a very long time, especially since I've got 350 watts of solar coming in through this charge controller and a 500 watt system pumping out of the alternator. Every time the car turns on, I'm putting those 40 amps directly into the back here. So underneath this plywood panel is the battery. It's huge. It weighs a ton. Then I've got one of my 2 fuse panels back here, routed directly through these bus bars. The other fuse panel is behind the other bench for the appliances on that side. I've got my 350 watts of solar that come in through here. As you can see, it's charging right now, but since it's cloudy, I'm probably not getting much. This here runs essentially all of the vast majority of the systems. So I've got both sets of lights on fuses there. I've got the fan on fuses. I've got the inverter here, which supplies 2,000 watts to my outlets, which we'll go over in a second. I also have the bed lift system and a few other things in here, like the fridge. Everything is wired through a fuse, and the only terminals and the only things coming off of the battery terminals are these bus bars, which have the access which goes straight to the inverter, the other fuse panel, this fuse panel, charge controller, and the charging from the alternator in the front. This power system it's not overkill. It's exactly the right amount, in my opinion, and I've had very few problems with it. This inverter also supplies power for a few of my systems that require AC power, as in, of course, all the outlets, but then the network boosting and the Wi-Fi are both running off of that. My water heater is running off of that, and the stove for its automatic ignition is running off of that. Those systems will draw about 25 watts combined resting, along with just the alternators, along with the inverter's default draw. However, the second I press one of those buttons to turn on the water heater, you'll see the 1.5 kilowatts drain right out of the power system. And that'll have a substantial drop in voltage, but as long as I only use it for 10-20 minutes, it's not a problem at all. The heater is controlled by the thermostat right there. The little digital thermostat, I can set whatever temperature I want. Once it gets cold enough, the heater powers on, draws gas straight from the propane tank, and heats up the van. And with the insulation, I've had no problems with that. We will get to finally test that out, of course, when I go to stupidly cold places, like I'm sure you're all excited to see, and I'm excited to do as well. Down here is the water system, which has 15 gallons of cold water, 3.5 gallons of hot water, and then, I'm not even sure, I think it's like 5 or 7 gallons of gray water, which I'm able to just flip this on or off, this valve open or closed, to release the water straight out the bottom of the van. This just pours straight into there, and as you can hear, once I turn that on, it powers on the pump. The pump supplies 3 gallons per minute. It cuts off automatically at 45 psi, similar to a normal household water pressure. So that works perfectly fine. That means that if I turn on any of these, the pump knows to turn on automatically, and then I can just use the sink like I would anywhere else, even though I'm creating my own water pressure. I also have in here the water filter, which is just by this water drop company, and it provides some nice, clean drinking water out of there. One of the things you might be wondering is where's the bathroom, right? Where's the shower? Where's the bathroom? I don't have one. Of course, deciding what was going to go into the van was not completely my idea, but we both agreed that having no bathroom was the way we wanted. I've been living in a car for a very long time, and I never had a bathroom in there, so finding bathrooms or just going in the woods has been a basic component of my life for quite a while now, and so it didn't seem like an unnecessary thing to take up space, which would have been either taking up a major part of the kitchen or not being able to have the elevator bed system that I want, which, could have been a possibility. But all that for a bathroom that is kind of gross to think about. And since I have gyms and public bathrooms all around the world, it's not really much of a problem. I'd much rather just have the space the way I do now. And it's been a few months, just like it's been years living in the car, and I never had a problem with that. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I think my vision was executed exactly the way I wanted it to be. I think the style, fits my personality and the way I like things to look. And I could see myself living in here for, as long as I have to. I haven't had any kinds of issues. It shocks me every single time that this is mine, and it's really the most blessed feeling that I've ever had, at least so far in life. I used to feel that way about the car, but now this is on a whole nother level. And something that I wasn't sure I was going to get back from when I used to live in the Ford Flex was the feeling of having some kind of connection and really feeling like it's your home. And what I've learned is that, honestly, that feeling first comes when you're hiking in some remote, scary place. You're worried about bears, you're worried about the cold. All you want is to get home. And when finally that image is your van, and after you're bushwhacking or you're lost or whatever, and you finally see in the middle of the night the reflection of your headlights or taillights, and you just get so excited to see your van's still there, it's still your home. And after the first time I had that feeling, I was like, oh no, this is my baby now. This is my home, and I have, no doubts whatsoever. Of course, I'm always going to miss Chad from before, but this is a new chapter. This is a new home. This is a new part of my life, and I couldn't be more excited about it. Before I go, I'll step outside and show you guys just what it looks like from the outside, so you can get an idea of, how big it is and how the window looks and things like that. But aside from that, I think we've covered just about everything there is to cover inside. If you have any questions about my van conversion, about your own van conversion, things that I did, things that you think are good ideas, bad ideas, or any suggestions you have about things that I might want to look forward to or look into for the future, don't hesitate to leave a comment. I'm changing the conversion all the time, and I'd love to help other people with their own projects. So yeah, please leave your feedback in the comments. It's welcome and it's appreciated. Here on the outside, you can see how that window inlay looks. I wanted to go with one of those tinted glass overlay windows like that because I think it looks nice. And it's the only window aside from the front ones. I also have the water inlet. This is how I can fill up the water tank at campsites or at RV dumps. And it works just fine. It's nice and easy. You might be able to hear actually the exhaust from the heater, which is much quieter than like diesel heater exhaust and things. Only a few steps away, and you can't really hear anything anymore. Coming around the front, you can get a good idea of these tires I've got on here, which so far have been very capable, much better than anything I could do in the SUV before. So I'm hoping that, along with all the weight of the van, I'll be able to take this guy through all the winter weather coming ahead. So far off-road, it's been just fine. If anything, more capable than what I ever had in Chad. Alright, well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the new van conversion. I don't have a name for him yet. Definitely a him, but that's, similar along the lines of, I guess it could be like Chad's big brother, even though he's younger. But if you're eager to see all of my adventures, these upcoming months in this new van, please don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel. I will be posting as much as possible about my life and my adventures in the van. It looks like tonight we might be getting our first snow, down at normal altitudes that are drivable. Even in this campsite here, might be waking up to a winter wonderland. So stay tuned for that adventure coming up next. And thank you so much for watching this video. See you next time.